welcome to Diana's Diary Room, and this is what Big Brother fans live for. If you don't have the live feeds, you have missed an incredible night and couple days of strategy. It took 7 weeks for us to get here, but finally, this is what Big Brother fans live for. Now let's do a quick recap. Last week was the double eviction. Ian put up Frank and Ashley. Ashley went home right after Boogie got voted out. Frank was hot. Frank was hot. Frank was hot. And Ian said, they bullied me into it. I only had and he played the I'm just a nerdy kid and I can't handle stress card. And Frank bought it 100%. So what happens is Frank has got this, I'm going to get Dan out because Dan is the one who got Ian to do this. Now we all know that on the CBS show, they show Shane and Brittany pulling Ian into the arcade saying, put up Frank and Ashley, and he's like, no, Shane and Joe, and she's put up Frank and Ashley, and Ian goes out and does it. It's Brittany who is Ian's little puppet master. It's not Dan, and it never has been Dan. He tried to get Ian, but Brittany beat him to the punch. Okay, so Dan's taken the heat for this alliance decision, and it was all of them, not just Brittany, not just Shane, not just Ian, all of them putting up Frank and Ashley. So his alliance is like, okay, we'll be okay. Dan and Danielle go on the block because of Frank. Frank decides that Dan's got to go. Now, before Frank had even won HOH, Brittany had scurried her little self right over to him and made a deal with him that she would rather roll with him. She has deals everywhere. She got herself covered. She got Shane covered. She was good. So when Frank won HOH, nope, skin off her nose, she wasn't going up. So then they have the Pandora's box. And in the Pandora's box, there's an extra veto. Ian wins it. Frank says, you're not going to use it. And Ian's like, oh, he's not giving an answer. He's not being clear. And it was Brittany who came up with a plan to Frank to say, if you tell him you're putting me up, he won't use it. Brittany, kind of is claiming that she was trying to help the Quack Pack, but the truth is she wanted herself safe no matter what. She didn't want Ian to use that veto, so she tells Frank, tell him you're putting me up, and he won't use the veto. All right, so he gets that veto. Then they go out and play another power veto competition, and Jen wins that. Now, the Quack Pack's plan was that Brittany or Shane should win that power veto, and then they could take back off Dan and Danielle. One of them would go up, but they'd have the votes to take care of everything. Didn't happen. Ian insists that he's not going to use the power veto no matter what, and the entire Quack Pack is absolutely, totally okay with Dan going home. And oh, by the way, not only should you go home, Dan, you should keep our secrets and keep covering for us, even though we have totally abandoned you. Yeah, right. So Dan gets 24 hours of solitary confinement during this power veto competition. And it is disco music and lights and everything. And at the beginning of it, the music's going and Dan's sitting there bopping around. He says, this is the soundtrack to me coming back to life in this game. He says hi to everybody in the room one time, and then he ignores them from that point forward for the next 24 hours. And he devises a master plan to get himself out of this situation. Dan comes out of solitary confinement pretending to be sick, getting everybody concerned about his well-being and everything. Everybody but Joe, because Joe's like, he ain't sick. He's faking this. So he does the whole I'm sick routine for about 2 hours, and then he says, I just want to have a house meeting where I can say my goodbyes and then have a good time for the rest of the time I'm here. Here we go. House meeting. Shane, you're Captain America. You're wonderful. Brittany, you told me you are a newlywed. We share this in common. I just love you. Da 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 da. Joe, you show me how to be a good husband and a good potential father. You're great. Jen, you know, you've taught me about my own prejudices and I've learned a lot from you. Ian, you're a kid like me and da-da-da-da. Frank, you're a competitor like me. And just everybody's getting glowing stuff, and he's saving Danielle for the last. And then he says, now, do me one favor. Respect me enough not to come up to me and talk game to me and pretend you're, you know, thinking I'm still in it when we all know you're sending me home. Because I'll shout your name from the rooftop. And then he drops his bomb. Oh, he does say to Frank, Frank, there were some things I said about you in the DR that were wrong. I want to take my Bible upstairs and clear those things up with you and apologize for them one-on-one, man-to-man. And then he lays his bomb. Danny, I thought you were going to be my Memphis. When I looked at you, I saw a loyal person, la, 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 la. And then he goes, but from now on, after what you did to me, you are dead to me in this game. Danny's face. Let me do Danny's face. As soon as I find my glasses, where'd they go? Well, just, here we go. Danny's face. Like that. That was Danny's face. It was priceless. Now, what makes this a great strategic move? Hurting Danny? Didn't that seem kind of cruel for no reason? Well, it was a two-part thing. Here it is. First of all, it was a smoke bomb. He set off a diversionary bomb in the house called Danielle, because Danielle is such a gaping hole of need that anybody says the slightest thing to her and she's a sobbing mess. Well, if you say something like, you are dead to me in this house, that's going to cause a waterfall of hysteria for which the entire house is going to have to tend to her. And he can take Frank upstairs and do his thing with Frank while they're all busy downstairs taking care of Danielle. That's part one. It is a great diversionary thing. Part two is that it opens up Frank to say, what'd she do? What happened to you? What's going on? And he, you know, gets to look like the sympathetic guy, and he gets to say to Frank, you thought you were alone in this game. Turns out it was me. And it opens the door of conversation because she did something. It also, part three, allows him to make this alliance with Frank and Dan, Jen, and Danielle, with the whole house not realizing that they're still friends because they're now pretending to be enemies, because he went down, he told her, hey, I was just joking. But we have to keep this up. We can't talk to each other and everything. So Frank makes a deal with him. Frank believes him because he told the truth. He did tell the truth. He put his hand on the Bible and he said, I'm going to tell you the truth. You use it either to help yourself in this game and send me home, or you use it to help me stay in the game and we'll work to Final Two together, whatever. But then he goes downstairs and he talks to Danielle. He convinces her that it was just game and that he saved both of them. And now they're acting as if they're mad at each other, or she's mad at him, and so on and so forth. Now, this has got Brittany utterly confused because Brittany ends up on the block. Jen uses her POV. Brittany ends up on the block, and Brittany is like, wait, something's not making sense here. I get Dan making a deal with Frank. I get that. I don't get why Dan says to Danielle, you're dead to me, but yet he's voting to keep her in the house. Something's not wrong. Brittany is just this far away from putting her finger on it, but she can't quite figure out why, because Dan and Danielle are still not really talking to each other. And she's just like, something's not right. She hasn't figured out that Dan and Danielle are in cahoots with this, and that she's going out the door, and her best buddy Danielle is 100% on board. Now Danielle personally regrets sending her out the door, but game-wise, Danielle's willing to do anything. This girl is something. But I love the fact that Dan knew her psychologically well enough to know that her reaction to "you're dead to me" in this game would be one of such catastrophic, heaving, crying, oh my gosh, that the entire house would be busy taking care of her so that he could go upstairs and talk in peace with Frank. Brilliant, brilliant move. Nice? I don't know, but brilliant. If you're a game lover, no matter if you like Frank or you like Brittany or you like Dan, it was a strategy brilliant. You know, people are always saying, Dr. Will's the best that ever played the game, and he never won a competition. And this year they're saying, oh, Dan's a wimp, he never won a competition. Dan just pulled off a freaking miracle. He was 1 foot out the door. His entire alliance was absolutely A-OK with him going home, and he saved himself. Miraculous. It was miraculous. Okay. Magical. So now Brittany's on the block. Ian is livid, and he's trying to claim that he only had 30 seconds, and he won't give up the whole I was bullied thing, and Frank is not having it. So why is Ian so mad? Is it just because he got caught? No, it's because his entire game plan just got shot to heck. And that doesn't mean that, Brittany went up. Ian's game plan from the beginning, and he's mumbled it over and over, and he said it many times. He wants to be the villain. He wants to be on the evil side. In future Big Brother, he hopes there's a good versus evil, and he's on the evil side. And the way he went about it was to be this innocent little dude that looked adorable while being really dorky, and slowly worm his way into the hearts of people and then stab them in the back. He had a significant hand in Janelle going home, because Brittany and Dan would have never gone for it without Ian's vote. Then he sends Boogie out the door, and he utters the words, "Get to step into Boogie," because he wants some street cred for himself. His next plan was to get Dan out the door. Dan would go home, and at the end, if he got there, he could say, "I got out all 4 coaches and Frank. I got out Janelle. I got out Boogie. I got out," he's not taking Brittany to the final 2, by the way. "I got out Dan." Then he would take out Brittany and then Frank, or sit in the final 2 with Frank and say, "He might have won all these comps. I masterminded all the coaches going home." And then he would lay out his case. Well, now he might have gotten out Boogie or voted Boogie out. He might have helped in Janelle's case, but Dan is safe, and Brittany's going home at the hands of Dan and Frank, so he can't claim that as his big victory in the final 2. His evil villain thing was cut short because he underestimated Dan's ability to talk his way out of something, and he really thought Dan wouldn't shank him as far as outing him. Why? I don't understand. I don't understand why Ian really thought that Dan would just lay down and die for him in this game and not out what Ian's part in it was. It makes no sense to me. I don't know where Ian was coming from on that level. So, anyhow, that's Ian. Frank and Ian have had lots of words of just, and Ian, geez, that kid, I'm telling you, he had such potential at the beginning of the season, and he was nice and likable and had some strategy to him, and that was cool. But then he got this real cocky side to him. Not likable, not watchable, and Ian really thinks that Ian is the smartest person in this house. They are all schlubs in comparison to his great brain. Well, Ian just got, and he doesn't like it. Not one bit. Now, who's sitting pretty at this point? Oh, Joe. Joe's sitting pretty, because practically everybody wants to take Joe to the final 2. Anybody with a brain wants to take Joe to the final 2. Anybody like Shane. Shane. There's just not words for Shane. I can't even. It's a waste of Dinah's diary room time to talk about Shane, because he just agrees with everybody. Do I think Shane's going to keep Brittany? No. I think he's going to keep Danielle, because they have a final 2, and that's his true final 2. I don't think it's Danielle's true final 2. I think that she has one with Jen. She has one with Dan. She had one with Brittany, but Brittany's going home. She had one with Shane. And she was trying to get one with Frank. So Danielle's not really married to the whole Shane-Danielle final 2. But I think Shane is. And therefore he will keep Danielle this week. Joe will follow suit. And Joe and Shane will vote out Brittany. And they think they're going to roll with Frank. I can't wait to see how this plays out next week. It's so great for the game to finally really start getting, very strategic. But still, we are still at the point where there's like 4 or 5 alliances in this house of 8 people. 8! And there's like 4 or 5 alliances. There is Dan, Frank, Danielle, and Jen. Now, and then there's Frank trying to make an alliance with Jen, Joe, and Shane. There are all these final two deals all over the place. It is so funny. And then there's, you know, Joe, Shane, Brittany, and Ian. It's just a mess. The whole place is a mess. You watch the show, you watch the feeds, and literally, if you're not watching it 24/7, you can't keep track of who and who's really with who and who's really telling who the truth. You have to use their past conversations with people to piece it together. Like Shane is telling Brittany one thing, but you have to notice that it's the same exact way he spoke to Frank and Boogie when he was stringing them along. He tells Danielle, I'm 100% taking you. He tells Brittany, I've got a lot of things to think about. I haven't made up my mind yet. That's how you know who Shane is voting for. He's voting to keep Danielle. He might change his mind, but at this point, that's who he's voting for. It's a crazy house. It's a crazy place. And I wish there were more divided. I'm like Joe. Come on, let's draw the line. Let's know where we're at. Because I'm sick of being confused. That's why. I'm tired of going, who's going to do who this week? There's no loyalty in this house. Nothing but liars. It's really kind of, I think it's a unique Big Brother house because literally I don't think there's a single soul loyal to another single soul in this house except for Joe to Shane. Shane is not loyal to Joe, but Joe is loyal to Shane. And so, interesting house. All right, that's Diana's Diary Room for today. It was an amazing couple of days on the feeds. You should really check them out. They're getting very good. We lived through some really boring, predictable, disgusting weeks of Big Brother, but we're finally getting to the payoff. Here it is, folks. Enjoy the ride.